Our God in heaven, as we talk about this topic that is occupying the minds of many people at this point in time, we pray that you will give us the wisdom from above and open hearts that we may receive your message this morning. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Did you buy your gifts last Black Friday? No. This morning, we will unwrap the Christmas gift. And before we dive into it, we know that there are many things that are dear to us. Our loved ones, our pets. What else? Our opinions, events or occasions. Many of these are very dear to us. And when people say things in favor of or against the things that we love, we react in one of three ways. First, in agreement. Two, in opposition. Or three, indifference. Any one of those may be our reaction to something that is against or in favor of our opinions. Now, how we react depends on many factors. Some of them are our age. Two, our experience. Three, our education. And most importantly, four, our spiritual maturity and discernment. How we arrive at a correct reaction or conclusion depends upon open-mindedness. You remember Paul's experience when he was in Athens, and he was talking about what the Greeks thought was something new. And they were saying, what is this babbler trying to say? Others remarked, he seems to be advocating foreign gods. And they said, well, Paul, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. They brought him on a hill called Areopagus. If you go there now, it's called the Mars Hill. It's still there. And then they asked him, may we know what this new teaching is that you are presenting? And so he talked about Jesus Christ. We also remember the Bereans. They did not just accept everything that was said in the pulpit. When they went home, what did they do? According to the scriptures, Acts 17:11, they examined the scriptures. They examined the scriptures every day to see if what Paul was saying was true. And that was Paul, the author of half of the New Testament. And they still scrutinized what he was saying. Well, this morning, we will examine Christmas from the point of view of three aspects: history, scriptures, and inspired writings of Sister White. I'm not here to condemn anyone for how they celebrate Christmas or why they don't celebrate Christmas. What I prayerfully request from each one this morning is, for our own benefit, that we have an open mind. Is that fair? The title of today's presentation is Christmas Unwrapped: Origins, Traditions, and Focus. This morning, we will learn why Christmas is a jolly season. why we have Santa Claus, why it is party time, why we have all these decorations, why it is even called Christmas. We will also learn why is it celebrated on December 25. We probably know some of these things already, but we will dig deeper into it. And we will try to find if Christ is found in many of these things. For instance, the origins of Christmas. Can we find Christ in the origins of Christmas? In Rome, where winters are not as harsh as those in the far north, there was a celebration called Saturnalia. Saturnalia. You know, back in 2006, my wife and I had the privilege of visiting Rome. And I took this picture. This is the Roman Forum. This is the Roman Forum. And in fact, let me see now. This is the Ark of Titus, actually. If you go further, you will see the Colosseum. But this imposing structure is called the temple in honor of Saturn. Saturnalia was an ancient Roman festival in honor of this god. He was the god of agriculture, Saturn. It was held on December 17 of the Julian calendar and later expanded with festivities going through December 23. But some sources indicate that they were celebrated from December 21 to December 25, depending on the sources that you find. They're all over. The holiday was celebrated with an animal sacrifice in this temple at the Roman Forum. And by the way, the Roman Forum was the center of activities in the whole of the Roman Empire. This place here. And a public banquet during Saturnalia was held, followed by private gift giving, continual partying, and a carnival atmosphere that overturned the Roman social norms. Gambling was permitted, and masters provided table service for their slaves. So instead of the slaves serving the masters at this time would serve the slaves. And you could imagine how happy the slaves were at that time. And halls will be bedecked with laurels and green trees, and people carried lighted candles through the streets. And the poet Catullus called it the best of days. I'm afraid, brothers and sisters, the focus of the Saturnalia festival was Saturn, the god of agriculture, and not Christ. This is a picture that I took of the Pantheon. Now, what is this Pantheon? The Pantheon in Rome's Campus Martius is a marvel of ancient engineering and architecture, and you will see later why. It was originally built by Marcus Agrippa, a statesman and son-in-law of Augustus, in 27. It was dedicated to all the gods of ancient Rome, hence the name Pantheon. Pan meaning all, and theon meaning gods. Pan-Am means all American. The Pantheon was built on the site of an earlier temple, which had been commissioned by Marcus Agrippa during the reign of Augustus. After the original burned down, the present building was ordered by Emperor Hadrian and probably dedicated AD 126. Its date of construction is uncertain because Hadrian chose to re-inscribe the new temple with Agrippa's date inscription from the older temple. The Pantheon in Rome was converted into a Catholic church in AD 609, and this is what you see inside. In the past, there would be there would be pagan gods in these places. But now you would see Catholic saints. It was consecrated as the Church of St. Mary and the Martyrs by Pope Boniface IV, with the intention of promoting Christianity and honoring Christian martyrs. This transformation marked a significant shift from its original purpose as a Roman temple. As you might know, in the Catholic Church, they are the champions of recycling. They recycle pagan temples into Catholic churches. They recycle pagan gods into Catholic saints. If you look up above, when you're inside this temple, this is what you will see. Almost 2,000 years after it was built, the Pantheon's dome is still the world's largest unreinforced concrete dome. That hole in the Pantheon's dome, known as the oculus, is one of its most striking features. It's about 30 feet in diameter. It's about from here to there, and serves both as a practical and symbolic purpose. What is the symbolism? The oculus represents the eye of the heavens, or a connection to the divine. In ancient Roman architecture, it symbolized the sun, or the gods watching over the temple, creating a sense of cosmic unity. It is as if the building is open to the sky, inviting the divine presence. While the Pantheon was dedicated to all the gods, its focus was the sun god. Emperor Aurelian strengthened the position of the sun god, which he called Sol Invictus. What does that mean? Unconquered sun. As the main divinity of the Roman Pantheon. His intention was to give all the peoples of the empire, civilian or soldiers, Easterners or Westerners, a single God they could believe in without betraying their own gods. The center of the cult was a new temple built in AD 274 and dedicated on December 25 of that year, AD 274, in the Campus Agrippae in Rome. It was a grand and wealthy temple. Now it's largely gone, with its remains incorporated into later buildings or lost. In AD 274, Emperor Aurelian established Dies Natalis Solis Invicti as a state festival celebrated on December 25, promoting a unifying sun worship in the empire. Dies Natalis Solis Invicti translates to the birthday of the unconquered sun. This was a Roman festival celebrated on, of all dates, December 25, honoring the sun god Sol Invictus, the unconquerable sun. Its placement near the winter solstice made it a significant cultural event and obviously influenced the later Christian celebration of Christmas. In 46 BC, when the Roman Julian calendar, we now have the Gregorian calendar. When the Roman Julian calendar was adopted, December 24th was the shortest day of the year at that time. Therefore, December 25 was the first annual day that daylight began to increase. Okay, did you get that? Especially those who have roots in the Philippines. With Catholic roots in the Philippines, like me. On December 24, we go to church. What do we call this? Misa de Gallo? Yeah, is that called Misa de Gallo? I forgot now. It's been a while. Okay. But anyway, okay, this is the origin of it. Okay. Back in that year, 46 BC, when this was adopted, December 24th was the shortest day of the year, and December 25th was the first annual day that the daylight began to increase. So beginning December 25, the day gets longer. Okay? Thus the origin of the rebirth, as if the sun is being born again. And however, in 1582, the Roman Catholic Pope Gregory VIII caused the current Gregorian calendar to be adopted in order to eliminate the solar time shift introduced by the Julian calendar. By December 1582, the shortest day of the year had shifted 12 days back on the Roman Julian calendar to Wednesday, December 12th. Okay? However, the original December 25th as birth date was retained for the pagan sun god by the Roman Saturnalia and Sol Invictus traditions. As you can see, brothers and sisters, the focus of the December 25th festival is the celebration again of the birthday of the sun god, Sol Invictus. Now, around the time of the winter solstice, Romans observed Juvenalia, a feast honoring the children of Rome. Juvenalia, have you heard of juvenile? That's where it came from. Juvenalia was a holiday celebrated in honor of the youth of Rome. Though the exact date and details are a bit murky, but here's what we know. The festival was a part of the broader Saturnalia celebrations, which took place on December 17 to 23, overlapping with the winter solstice. While Saturnalia itself was primarily for Saturn, Juvenalia specifically focused on the children and young people of Rome. And this is the reason why through this, after thousands of years, there is so much joy among children during this Christmas season, because this tradition has been carried over through the years. And during Juvenalia, they have school holiday. Schools were closed, and students often performed in marketplace or gave speeches. They have festivals, games, theatrical performances, and general merriment, emphasizing the joy and renewal associated with youth. However, in Europe, in Scandinavia, the Norse celebrated the Yule or Yuletide. Have you heard of the Yuletide? This is where it came from. And it was celebrated from December 21, the winter solstice, through January. And the end of December was a perfect time for celebration in most of the areas of Europe. In recognition of the return of the sun. Here comes the sun again. Fathers and sons would bring home large logs, which they would set on fire. The people would feast until the log burned out, which could take as many as 12 days. So you count from December 25 to December 6th. How many days would there be? 12 days. And this is the origin of the 12 days of Christmas. The events of Yule involved feasting, drinking, and sacrifice. So there's so much drinking in Christmas. It all began from all of these traditions. Scholar Rudolf Simek comments that the pagan Yule feast had a pronounced religious character, and comments that it is uncertain whether the Germanic Yule feast still had a function in the cult of the dead and in the veneration of the ancestors. So he's thinking, this is a scholar who studied this, it appears that it had something to do with the veneration of their ancestors. The traditions of the Yule log, Yule goat, Yule boar are still reflected in the Christmas ham and in the Yule singing. In most forms of Wicca, W-I-C-C-A, it's a pagan witchcraft, and it's a modern form of paganism. This holiday is celebrated at the winter solstice at the rebirth of the horned hunter god. For some Wiccans, meaning witches, their god has been interpreted as the oak king and the holly, H-O-L-L-Y, king, as well as the sun god and the vegetation god. The focus of Yuletide was feasting, drinking, sacrifice, and rebirth of the horned hunter god, interpreted as various gods, including the sun god. In the early years of Christianity, the birth of Jesus was not celebrated. No, it was not. The Christians, in the meantime, were having what they call the Mass of Christ. You see, in the Catholic Church, they don't have a preaching service like this. They would have a Mass. You go to church, it takes about 1 hour, okay, and the priest does all the ceremonies, and it's called a Mass. So, at that time, they had what they call the Mass of Christ at various times and places. But in the 4th century, the church officials decided to institute the birth of Jesus as a holiday. And what did they do? Pope Julius I chose December 25 as the birthday of Jesus. The Catholics needed a way to convert the pagans running around the streets of Rome with their candles and presents to Christian practices. So, what did they do? If you cannot beat them, join them. It is commonly believed that the church chose this date in an effort to adopt and absorb the traditions of the pagan Saturnalia festival. When the Mass was first said on midnight of December 24th, Missa de Gallo, around the year 394 AD, it was the Mass of Christ, or Christmas. The religious machine added Jesus as a co-celebrant with the sun on December 25, eventually transforming its focus from the sun God's birthday to the birthday of the Son of God. Let me repeat that. Eventually transforming its focus from the sun God's birthday to the birthday of the Son of God. It became the biggest day of the year for the Roman Catholic institution. By holding Christmas at the same time as traditional winter solstice festivals, church leaders increased the chances that Christmas would be popularly embraced. But what happened? They gave up the ability to dictate how it should be celebrated. 1 Corinthians 11:24-25 tells us how we should remember Christmas. How we should remember Christ, not Christmas. And when he had given thanks, he brake it and said, "Take, eat, this is my body which is broken for you. This do in what? Remembrance of me." The communion service is the way to remember Christ. After the same manner also he took the cup when he had supped, saying, "This cup is the New Testament in my blood. This do ye as oft as you drink it, in what? In remembrance of me." These verses refer to the Last Supper, when Jesus instructs his disciples to remember him through the breaking of bread and sharing of the wine. Paul recounts this event to the Corinthian church, emphasizing the Lord's Supper or the communion as a way to proclaim Jesus' death until he comes again. It's a call to remember Jesus' sacrifice and covenant with believers. The Catholic Church has been seen by some as shifting the focus from the Lord's Supper, where Jesus instructed his followers to do this in remembrance of me, to a celebration of his birth on December 25, a manner of celebrating Jesus not biblically prescribed, and a date not explicitly mentioned in the Bible. Let's come to America. Christmas was not a holiday in early America. From 1659 to 1681, the celebration of Christmas was actually outlawed in Boston. Around the same time in Europe, when Oliver Cromwell and his Puritan forces took over England in 1645, they vowed to rid England of decadence. And as a part of their effort, they canceled Christmas in England. But our good legislators in Congress, they had even a session on December 25 in 1799. Can you imagine that? The first Christmas under America's Constitution, it was not a holiday. Christmas was not declared a federal holiday until June 26, 1870. Alabama was the first state to grant legal recognition to Xmas or Christmas in 1836. DC did it in 1870. And by 1893, all the states and territories had made similar acknowledgments. And in the next 100 years, Americans built a Christmas tradition, all their own, including pieces of many other customs, like decorating trees, sending holiday cards, and gift giving. Americans reinvented Christmas and changed it from a wild carnival holiday into a day of party, jolly, nostalgia, gift-giving, Christmas trees, Christmas holly, Christmas cards, mistletoe, Santa Claus, and Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. Let us examine some of these elements of Christmas celebration and see if the focus is on Christ. The Christmas holly. Have you heard decking the halls with boughs of holly? Holly is believed to frighten off witches and protect the home from thunder and lightning. In West England, it is said that sprigs or branches of holly around a young girl's bed on Christmas Eve are supposed to keep away mischievous little goblins. The sacredness of holly finds a pagan origin. The Druids believed that holly, with its evergreen looks, keeps the earth beautiful when the sacred oak lost its trees. They used to wear branches of holly in their hair when they went into the forest to watch their priests cut the sacred mistletoe. The Christmas holly is not focused on Christ. What about the mistletoe? What is the origin of the mistletoe? The common name of the plant is derived from an ancient belief that mistletoe was propagated from bird droppings. It is believed, this belief was related to the then accepted principle that life could spring spontaneously from poop. It was observed in ancient times that mistletoe would often appear on a branch or a twig where birds left droppings. Mistel is the Anglo-Saxon word for dung, and tan is the word for twig. So mistletoe means a barbecue of a dung on a twig. The mistletoe was long regarded as both a sexual symbol and the soul of the oak. It was gathered at both midsummer and winter solstices, and the custom of using mistletoe to decorate houses at Christmas is a survival of the Druid and pre-Christian traditions. Have you been kissed under a mistletoe? Kissing under the mistletoe is first found associated with the Greek festival of Saturnalia, back again to that time, and later with the primitive marriage rites. At Christmas time, a young lady standing under a bowl of mistletoe cannot refuse to be kissed. Such a kiss could mean deep romance or lasting friendship and goodwill. If the girl remained unkissed, she cannot expect to marry the following year. That's what they say. They probably originated from two beliefs. One belief was that it has a power to bestow fertility. It was also believed that the dung from which the mistletoe would also possess the life-giving power. In Scandinavia, mistletoe was considered a plant of peace, under which enemies could declare a truce or warring spouses kiss and make up. Later, the 18th century English credited it with a certain magical appeal called a kissing ball. Again, brothers and sisters, I'm afraid the mistletoe is not focused on Christ. What about this guy? Who is he? In the 4th century, among Christians, there is near universal belief that Saint Nicholas was a bishop from Asia Minor who died in the middle of the 4th century. However, according to religious historians, there is no evidence that Saint Nicholas ever existed as a human. In fact, there are quite a few indicators that he was simply a recycled pagan god. He seems to have been created out of legends attributed to the Greek god Poseidon, and the Roman god Neptune, and the Teutonic god called Nicar. When the church created the persona of Saint Nicholas, they adopted Poseidon's title, the sailor. And they seem to have picked up his last name from Nicar. And various temples of Poseidon became shrines of Saint Nicholas. Saint Nicholas has also adopted some of the qualities of the grandmother or Befana from Italy. She was said to have filled children's stockings with gifts, and her shrine at Bari was also converted into a shrine of Saint Nicholas. In popular folklore, Befana visits all the children of Italy on the eve of the feast of the Epiphany to fill their sacks with candy and presents if they are good, or a lump of coal or dark candy if they are bad. The Christian church created a fictional life history for Saint Nicholas, and he was given the name Saint Nicholas of Myra. He was said to have died in either 345 or 352 AD. He was believed to be a bishop of Myra in Lycia, in Lycia, now Turkey. He is alleged to have attended the First Council of Nicaea. However, his name does not appear on the lists of attending bishops, and his feast is celebrated on the anniversary of his death, which is December 6th. Dentist Clement Clark Moore is believed by many to have written a poem, an account of a visit from St. Nicholas, which became better known as The Night Before Christmas. Moore's poem is largely responsible for our modern image of Santa Claus as a jolly old elf with a portly figure and a supernatural ability to ascend the chimney with a mere nod of his head. His poem helped to popularize the now familiar idea of Santa Claus who flew from house to house on Christmas Eve in a miniature sleigh led by 8 flying reindeer leaving presents for deserving children. In 1881, political cartoonist Thomas Nast drew on Moore's poem to create the first likeness that matches our modern image of Santa Claus. I remember, when I was a kid, I used to, during Christmas time, I used to carry in my pocket a plastic figurine of something very similar to this. So when I see this guy, it reminds me of my toy during Christmas. His cartoon depicted Santa as a rotund, cheerful man with a full and white beard, holding a sack laden with toys for lucky children, after being modified from a fat little elf creature depicted in Dr. Moore's poem. It is Nast who gave Santa his bright red suit, trimmed with white fur, North Pole workshop, elves, and his wife, Mrs. Claus. In 1931, Haddon Sandblom, illustrator for the Coca-Cola company, drew a series of Santa images in their Christmas advertisements until 1964. The company holds the trademark for the Coca-Cola Santa design, and Christmas ads, including Santa, continue to the present day for Coca-Cola. In 1939, Robert L. May of the Montgomery Ward Company created a poem about Rudolph, the 9th reindeer. He created an ostracized reindeer with a shiny red nose who became a hero one foggy Christmas Eve, and Santa was part way through the deliveries when the visibility started to degenerate. And what did he do? Santa added Rudolph to his team of reindeer to help illuminate the path. What are the attributes of Santa? He is virtually omnipresent. Can you imagine? He can visit hundreds of millions of homes in one night. From Albania to America. From Yemen to the Yucatan. No error. Santa is omniscient. He monitors each child. He is all-seeing and all-knowing. He knows if they have been good or they have been bad. Although not omnipotent, he does have great powers. He can manufacture gifts for hundreds of millions of children and deliver them in one night. It's to the correct child. This is even before the computer age. He is all good and all just. He judges which children have shown good behavior and rewards them appropriately. Bad children are bypassed. Have you heard of Santa dying? He must be eternal. But brothers and sisters, only God is omnipresent. If I ascend into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. Only God is omniscient. You have searched me and known me. Thou knowest my down sitting and mine uprising. Thou understandest my thought afar off. For there is not a word in my tongue. But lo, O Lord, thou knowest it all together. Only God is omnipotent. And Jesus spoke unto them and saying, all power is given unto me in heaven and in earth. And only God is all good and all just. And all these verses talk about God's goodness, about his being just. And in 2 Timothy 4:1, it says, I charge thee therefore before God and the Lord Jesus Christ, who shall judge the quick and the dead at his appearing in his kingdom. Only God knows everything. And brothers and sisters, only God is eternal. For unto us a child is born, unto us a child is given. The government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. You know, my wife was just asked by somebody at another church, can we do some caroling? We used to do this, back in the Philippines. During this time we would go caroling. What about hymns? What about Christmas hymns and Christmas cards? Have you heard this song? Here comes Santa Claus. Here comes Santa Claus. Here comes Santa Claus. And then look at the interlude. It says, peace on earth will come to all. What? If we just follow the light. So let's give thanks to the Lord above, because Santa comes tonight. And this is flatly false. Okay? It is the birthday assigned to the sun god. It is not the birthday of Christ. And for us and for this song to claim that there will be peace on earth, if we just follow Santa Claus, Santa should be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. What about this song? Christ, right, the very first line already is flatly false. Christ was born on Christmas Day. Okay, and then the fourth stanza: Christian men, rejoice and sing. This is the birthday of the King. So, brothers and sisters, if ever you have to sing any of these Christmas songs, read the lines. If they talk about Christ being born on Christmas Day, I suggest that we don't sing a lie. What about Christmas trees? Long before the advent of Christianity, plants and trees that remain green all year had a special meaning for people in winter. I'm as guilty as many of us here. During Christmas, especially when the children were young, we would find the best fresh Christmas tree that we could afford. Just as people today decorate their homes during the festive season with pine, spruce, and fir trees, ancient peoples hung evergreen boughs over their doors and windows. In many countries, it was believed that evergreens would keep away witches, ghosts, evil spirits, and illness. Pagans used trees as part of their religious ceremonies. The Druids decorated oak trees with fruit and candles in honor of their gods of the harvest. During the Roman festival of Saturnalia, trees were decorated with gifts and candles. So this is nothing new. People have been doing this for thousands of years. The Vikings regarded evergreen coniferous trees as symbols that the darkness of winter would end and that spring would return. Many ancient people believed that the sun was a god and that winter came every year because the sun god had become sick and weak. They celebrated the winter solstice because it meant that at last the sun god would begin to get well. And evergreen boughs reminded them of the all green plants that would grow again when the sun god was strong and summer would return. Now, this is the only biblical reference to Tammuz. Search the whole Bible, this is the only one. Tammuz was the Babylonian fertility god. Now, if you read this one, the women of Jerusalem were bewailing his dying. Look what transpired here. They said unto me, they said, the Lord seeth us not. The Lord had forsaken the earth. You see, at this time, vegetation has wilted. And Tammuz is often depicted as a young shepherd. Tammuz is a fertility god. Tammuz is often depicted as a young shepherd associated with the cycle of nature's growth and decay. And the most famous myth involves his descent into the underworld, where he is forced to spend half the year, causing the earth to become barren. His return to the world above marks the revival of vegetation, symbolizing the seasonal cycle. And his myth of descending into the underworld and rising back reflects a cycle reminiscent of the sun's daily journey, symbolizing the renewal and rebirth of the sun, though Tammuz is not explicitly a sun god. In Israel, the annual wilting of vegetation typically occurs during the summer months, around May to October. And the peak of the dry season is usually in July and August, when temperatures can soar and humidity is low. And when you read Ezekiel 8:1, you read the background of what happened here. Ezekiel was carried in a vision. Okay, he was carried in a vision into the temple, and the year that happened is indicated in Ezekiel 8:1. And it came to pass in the 6th year, in the 6th month, in the 5th day of the month, I sat in mine house, and the elders of Judah sat before me, that the hand of the Lord God fell upon me. You know, that particular date, the 6th year, the 6th month, in the 5th day of the month, it translates to the present September 17, 592 BC. September 17, 592 BC. At around the time, capture of the Israelites and the elites of the Israelites. King Jehoiakim was captured along with the other elites and carried over into Babylon. And in 586 BC was the second more significant capture, when Jerusalem and the temple was destroyed. Looking back, we may say that this might be the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. Look what happened here. This is the Lord saying to Ezekiel. He said unto me, turn ye again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than they do. Okay? Greater than what happened regarding Tammuz. They brought me, pertaining to Tammuz, they brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was towards the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz, because the vegetation has died. Then he said unto me, have you seen this, O son of man? Turn ye, and thou shalt see even a greater abomination than this. And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house. And behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs towards the temple of the Lord, and their faces towards the east. What did they do? They worshiped the sun towards the east. Now, this was summer. I don't think that this is an origin of Christmas, but the concept is the same. These verses probably did not lead to the celebration of Christmas on December 25, but it illustrates God's jealousy. God's jealousy for what? Worshipping the sun and calling it as abomination. Which is the same concept of celebrating the birth of the Son God on December 25. It's an abomination. You see what happened? 5 years later on, the first wave of Israelite captives were taken into Babylon. And then a few years later on, 586, Jerusalem was ransacked. The temple was destroyed. God was jealous, firstly. And secondly, it was an utter abomination to him. Back to the Christmas tree. Germany is credited with starting the Christmas tree tradition as we know it in the 16th century. Most 19th century found Christmas trees as being odd. The Pennsylvania German settlements had community trees as early as 1747. Oh, by the way, Trump just lighted the nation's Christmas tree. Have you watched that? But as late as the 1840s, Christmas trees were seen as pagan symbols and not accepted by most Americans. The fair question is, shall we have a Christmas tree? And this is from Sister White, saying, God would be well pleased if on Christmas each church would have a Christmas tree, on which shall be hung offerings, great and small, for these houses of worship. He is not promoting it, but if you have to have it, this is what you should do. Christmas gifts. Christmas is a unique festival of merrymaking and gift-giving. The tradition of giving gifts in this season owes its origin again to the ancient Roman feast of Saturnalia, during which time the giving of gifts was part of the celebration. Again, Sister White is saying, Christmas is coming. What did she say? Let the gifts that you have usually bestowed upon each other be placed in the Lord's treasury. If all, both young and old, will what? Forgo giving presents to one another and forgo the selfish outlay of means in these coming holidays, there would be in heaven a most precious record of self-denial for Christ's sake. You know, she wrote this in 1884. You know, if it was true then, how much truer it is today. Shall we not have such a Christmas as heaven can approve? Sister White is saying, there's a Christmas that that heaven can approve, and there's Christmas that heaven cannot approve. Thousands of dollars are needlessly spent every year in Christmas gifts to each other. And that means loss to God, loss to its cause. It pleases the vanity, encourages pride, creates all kinds of satisfaction, murmuring and complaints, because perhaps the gifts are not just what was desired, or not of the high value wanted or expected. I remember our experience as children, when we go to the country back in the Philippines, and we would have all these Christmas gifts, and there would be jealousy. There would be jealousy because the gift that the other child was something that the other person desired. Christmas is not observed as its name implies it should be. Man has what? Forsaken God in almost everything and has turned attention to self. Christmas has been made a day of feasting, a day of gluttony, of selfish indulgence. And what does she advise us? Let the parents place it in all its wonderful significance before their children and friends and say, this year, we will not expend money in presents upon ourselves, but we will honor and glorify God. Let us celebrate Christmas by remembering God instead of remembering our friends and relatives with gifts which they do not need. But now, who? Satan has managed to turn our offerings from God to one another, and thus has exalted self in his stead. He has turned it into a channel of selfishness to purchase toys and trifles or things of little value that will do your children no good, and to make larger gifts to one another. This is the work, whose work? Of Satan, that the great work of salvation might be hindered and God's name might not receive the glory due him. When tempted to purchase expensive ornaments or needless articles for Christmas, ask yourselves the questions: can I do this to the glory of God? I mean, this is the litmus test. This is the litmus test of whether something we do, including in Christmas, during Christmas, is to the glory of God or not. Can I do this to the glory of God? Remember that God will call you to account for the manner in which you employ his gifts. The 25th of December is supposed to be the day of the birth of Christ, or so they say. And its observance has become customary and popular. The Bible does not give us the precise time, and had the Lord deemed this knowledge essential for our salvation, he would have spoken to his prophets and apostles that we might know about the matter. But the silence of the scriptures upon this point evidences to us that it is hidden from us for the wisest purposes. In his wisdom, the Lord concealed the place where he buried Moses. Why? This secrecy was to prevent idolatry. For the very same purpose, he has concealed the precise day of Christ's birth, that the day should not receive the honor that should be given to Christ as the Redeemer of the world. Review and Herald, December 9, 1884. There is no divine sanctity resting upon the 25th of December. And it is not pleasing to God that anything that concerns the salvation of man through the infinite sacrifice made for them should be so sadly perverted from its professed design. Review and Herald, December 9, 1884. How many will keep Christmas aright? If you keep this day as you should, you would call upon the needy poor. And if they are in want of anything, supply that want. This is the way to do it. This is the way to do it. Not to our friends and relatives and children who do not need those things. In conclusion, brothers and sisters, I'm not suggesting that we should not observe Christmas. I presented to you the fascinating origins of Christmas and the various traditions associated with the observance of Christmas, and search for connections to Jesus. My prayer is, if we wish to observe Christmas, let us heed the wise counsels given by God's messenger in the quotations that we have considered. And may God grant all of us wisdom and resolve to follow divine guidance for a thoughtful and meaningful holiday celebration. God bless you all.